Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We are talking with the lead immigration attorney with the Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee, Chay Sengkhounmany. And Chay, I want actually you to say your name just to make sure I'm saying it right. It's Chay, right? And then what is your last name?
Sengkhounmany.
Okay, good. That wasn't bad. All right. For me, I mean, obviously you said it right. But I want to ask, all right, we left with myths and the problems those myths create when it comes to immigration and the work that you do with the Legal Aid Society. And we've talked about abuse in marriages, human trafficking, abuse for children. But what are some of the problems that the myths you see in all the news, intense news coverage you see, what are some of those problems that are created?
It creates this idea that immigrating is easy, you know, if you do it the legal way, that everybody should get in line. The reality is there is no one single line, and the pathway is not the same for everyone. You know, some, like for instance, in immigration law, there are specific carve-outs for certain countries and certain periods of time. So if you are from a particular country and you make it to the US and you get paroled in, you have an immediate way to get a green card. Whereas someone else from another country comes in the same way, they don't get paroled in. They don't have a pathway to get a green card. So the law is very complicated, and I guess the thing that I want people to understand is how complicated it is. And what you see portrayed on the news is never even an inch of what is technically involved. And I did a presentation a while back, and I kind of grabbed a bunch of my law books involving immigration, and my stack was about, you know, that high. And it was just a visual. And, you know, when I pointed it out that these are the regulations, the statutes that govern immigration law, just imagine trying to navigate that as a regular person. It's almost impossible.
I bet. And does it need to be simpler? Is that, I mean, it's so complicated. I guess it needs to be complicated. It's not a easy situation, but would it benefit us to make it simpler? What would you like to see?
Absolutely. So the current immigration law is like Band-Aids, you know. So the original law, the big overhaul was, I think, 1965. So the INA, Immigration and Nationality Act, originated in 1965. And essentially it has grown by patching that statute, putting exceptions, you know, making amendments, when I think the best place to be is to kind of start over, which, you know, because it's so politicized, people can't agree on, you know, what priorities to take and how to start over. It's where we are now. But yeah, we need to scrap it and start over. I think there was a big amendment in 1996 that made some significant changes that really impacted immigration.
That's interesting to describe it as Band-Aids. The main thing passed in 1965, and since then we've just made little Band-Aids, little amendments to it. Yeah, or big Band-Aids. And then I remember there was something big passed, you thought, in the 90s. I feel like I remember that. But we need a complete overhaul, and that right now politically is just not possible. We just can't get there. And so that's the situation we find ourselves in. Let's go to Carrie. Hello, Carrie.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yes. I just don't think that there should be any legal rights for immigrants. We have people here in our own country, Americans, that need help, but we can't even get help because our country is more worried about immigrants. So, I mean, we need to put our own people first. And then What about the immigrants? Because if we can't help ourselves, we can't help the immigrants.
Okay, Carrie. All right, thank you, Carrie. Carrie's not alone in what she's saying there, and her candor is almost refreshing. Let me just have you address that, because I know Carrie is not the only one that would think that, and you are on the front lines of this. You see that, and so please address what Carrie had to say.
Yeah, so under our Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and the Supreme Court determined that the 14th Amendment pertained to all persons, including all persons within the U.S., including those who are undocumented. They have rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So I found it very striking that the Supreme Court said, the word persons in the amendment refer to people, not U.S. citizens.
And I guess I also want you to, I want to ask, she is saying, look, we've got problems and we don't have time to help others from other countries. And so how much does it detract from the ability for Carrie to get whatever help she needs when we help immigrants? I mean, do you see that there is a conflict there or not?
I don't see it as a conflict. The world is full of problems. The U.S. is full of problems. Why do we have to focus on one at the expense of another? The U.S. Is a very big country with resources, and people are going to find their niche and their passions, and they're going to focus on what interests them and what if you think of foundations, they're going to have priorities, different priorities. If we focus solely on X at the expense of all the other things, what are the consequences of that? Are we going to have a society that is holistically problem solving? Probably not. I would be afraid of the unintended consequences of just dealing with homelessness, at the expense of what?
Absolutely.
We are absolutely dealing with all those things at once. We're not monolithic. And so I think the U.S. is a great enough nation that we can handle. I hear many people say that they can multitask. So let's do it.
And I worry about demonizing a group of people, right? And are you worried about that? Do you see that?
Oh, yes. I see it all the time, and from the very beginning of the start of the nation, people have been demonized. And really what has happened throughout history is it's moved from one group of people to another. At one time it was the newly arrived Irish immigrants, and then it was the even Jewish individuals who are demonized as well. And so now we have people coming from Latin America who are demonized. So it just moves, same rhetoric, same terminology that's being used.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll come back, continue the discussion. We'll be back right after this.